welcome to another episode from the water's edge. And today you catch up with us at Reepham Fisheries, and we're trying something slightly different to what I normally fish. And it's always good to get out and experiment with new methods. And we've been fishing not very long, sort of 15-20 minutes, and we've already seen that hopefully this is going to be a pretty good day. So first of all, if you're going to try something out, pick yourself a venue where there's a lot of fish. Let's face it, if you're going to try and experiment with things, if you're going to catch 1 or 2 fish during a day, you're probably not going to be too happy with it. So pick yourself a good venue, and experiment is what fishing's all about. It's exactly what we're doing today. So I'm going to get this fish in, and then hopefully we'll talk you through exactly what the rest of the day is going to entail. There we go, typical of the Lily or Bungalow Lake here at Reepham. The size of the fish that probably today will entail. There's a lot of fish in here, and that is roughly the sort of size I'd be expecting to catch. So a good day's fishing ahead, I'm sure of that, but I don't mind catching fish like this all day long. So we'll get him slipped in the net, and then we'll talk you through exactly what we're doing. There we go. I'm sure there's going to be many more of them throughout the day, but what I'll do is I'll take this opportunity to talk you through exactly what we're doing here today. Now, I said we're experimenting and doing something slightly different, so that is certainly the case, but the bait is as simple and as cheap as it gets, and that is the humble bread. Incredibly cheap, and today's fishing I've actually got 3 loaves of bread with me, and that is my whole bait for the session. I've got absolutely nothing else. So the difference comes in exactly what we're doing with it. Now, I do quite a lot of carp fishing, and coming into this time of year when the water warms up slightly, making a cloud sort of spotting over zigs while you're carp fishing is really, really good. So I thought, how can I turn into my match fishing something that makes a cloud and brings interest into my fishing? So this is where this idea come to, and what we're doing is we're liquidizing bread and we're colouring it. Now, bread for me is so good, and I use it loads in the winter. If you follow our channel, we've done a liquidized bread method, and we've done dobbing bread just over the other lake at the back, and I don't know why I stopped using it as it warms up. So as I said, we've put all this together, the need for a cloud in my opinion, and one of my favourite baits before it gets really hot, bread, and it brings us to exactly this. So how we start off, or what I've done a couple of sessions with it, and it's been really, really good. So all I do to start with, I liquidise 2.5 loaves of bread, I cut the crusts off and liquidise it to a real small, almost like a ground bait consistency, and that is your white breadcrumbs. So keep some of that as white, but in my other sort of 3 tubs I've got here, I like to use different colours and different flavours. Now that's just to create a different atmosphere in your peg. I'm a big believer that colours make a huge difference depending on what lake you fish, but you don't know what colour is going to be best. So what I've got here is I put sort of 2 or 3 handfuls of bread in each tub, and then I use my favourite liquid and colour dye over top. Now it happens to be that the goo that I use, 1 dyes it and 2 flavours it. So if you want to be cheaper, you could just use food dye or something like that and you just get the colour, but I like the flavours and the colours combined, so that's why I use what I use. So of the colours I've got today, I've got 1 in yellow, 1 in sort of a reddish pink, and then 1 in a dull brown. So I've got 2 really vivid bright ones. Hopefully they're the ones I use most. Big attraction, big smell. But if it's slightly harder and they back off of it, either the white natural or the slightly dull brown coloured breadcrumbs work really well. So let's have a little look at the rig, and then we'll talk you through about how we're feeding it and what we're trying to create. So this isn't anything special at all. We've got Matrix Slick in orange, perfect elastic for this. Rig wise is 0.15 to an 0.13 hook link, 0.5 gram float with a wire stem, just nice and stable. My shotting pattern is quite important. So what we're doing is we're punching 2 or 3 discs of bread onto the hook. So I want to make a natural fall of the disc of bread as it falls within the cloud of breadcrumbs. So I strung my shotting pattern out from the length from the complete rig, from a float to my hook link, and they're spaced out evenly all the way to the bottom. And then hook is a size 14. You want a fairly big hook, because I'm fishing 1 or 2 discs of bread, and then I want something that's going to stay on and not every time you get like a little knock it's going to come off. So rig wise really isn't that special, but it does the job, it's neat, and it's strong enough for what we need. So you tailor it to your venue for the size fish you're fishing, and it'll be spot on. And then on the end I've got a toss, but a fairly large one, because that full of breadcrumbs isn't a lot of bait at all. And that's one thing about bread, why I like doing it this time of year, is because until it gets really hot, the biggest fear for me, especially in a match, is overfeeding my peg. And I don't think you can do that with bread. That's what we found out on the bread method. While it was cold, the fish fed on it all day rather than catching 1 or 2 to start with and then they clear off. So I think you can be much more aggressive with bread, more positive, and I don't think you can overfeed it. So another reason why this method has been ultra successful for me. So I'm going to get out there now, and hopefully we shouldn't be too long before we connect with another fish. Like I said, there's absolutely loads in here. But all I'm doing is punching 2 discs of bread, squeezing the air out of them, because I do want them to sink, I don't want it to float. And then I'm going to go with yellow's been really good this morning. So some of the yellow breadcrumb into the pot. Now, I'm not squeezing it, I don't want it to go in as a ball. I want it to come out as a puff of cloud, and that rains over the top of your disc as they're falling. So it's the cloud you're trying to attract. I'll just grab the pole, the wind's blowing it away a little bit. It is pretty windy today, that's the only thing, so I hope the mic's good. And then we're shipping out to mark. So I've picked the mark on the far side. You want to try and make sure you do everything all neat and accurate. You keep creating that cloud and interest all in the same area. I'm lowering the rig in slowly. Like I said, the shot's going to naturally lay that bread disc in as if it wasn't attached to anything, and then I'm tapping in that cloud. So there we go, we've got one already. So that worked pretty well. But what that's doing is that cloud now is going to be falling through the water, ready for the next fish. So at different depths, those fish are going to be intercepting that, and they're looking for something bigger that they can come in and attack. So that is how it works. We'll get this one in. Obviously it doesn't always work quite as well as that. That was pretty exceptional, but be prepared to change your depths, because you know that cloud going through the water, it can mean that the fish come off the bottom. In general, I fish this about 2 inches off deck, and that's where I find most of the fish to be intercepting the breadcrumbs. But keep your eye out if you're getting liners and foul hookers that you can move and change depths, because they do generally come up, get this bread as quick as they can. They really like it. But we'll get him slipped back, we'll get another rig out there, and there's plenty more of these, the order of the day. There we go. Now it doesn't always work quite as well as that, but it has been productive in the days I've tried this. Now, one thing I would say is I haven't actually tried this on what I would class as a big fish venue where you're fishing for less fish. I've always tried this, as you would if you're sort of experimenting with baits and techniques on a lake that's got a lot of fish in, and I think for me, fish that would lean itself to catching more fish like this. So small F1, small carp, they're hungry little fish, they're really going to be liking this. But I'm sure it would work on bigger fish. There's no reason why it wouldn't. The concept's the same. It's obviously just less fish competing in amongst that cloud. So I think you get your best results on venues that are stocked very well, which is exactly why we're here today. But certainly give it a go on other venues and let me know how it gets on, because I'll be trying it on less stocked venues, because the whole principle is exactly the same and you can see what works. So 2 discs of bread have gone on. This time I've gone for a bit of pink dye bread. Now, I don't really think it makes a huge difference when you're catching like we are today. It looks like we're going to have a pretty good session, but it really literally is like the world's your oyster on that one. You can try any flavour and colour you want, and certainly there'll be one that works better at your venue. But now them discs have gone in, you can see that the float doesn't settle straight away. There we go, we're in again. You tap that cloud over, you can almost imagine what they're doing underneath the water. They're darting in amongst it. They can't really particularly eat anything of substance. I mean, if you look at a breadcrumb, there's absolutely nothing to it. It's almost going to wind them up, the fact they're having to eat so many little things and dart in and out of it, and then your 2 discs of bread go down there. Thank you very much, big meal, and they have it. That's why I think it works very, very well. So another one coming to net. We'll get him in and we'll carry on, see if we can learn more about this method, because every time I fish it I learn something new, and that's what practice sessions are all about. Another little F1, this one. They seem to be first into the action, and then occasionally I'm getting a small carp in between it. He really wanted it. That's well down there. The scourging needed on that one. Let's just take that out so I don't drop the scourger. Go, and we'll give you a little Look at it, there you go, little tiny F1. But when you catch them that quick, you'll be amazed at what weight you can do with it. This is a really quick method. You're literally hooking on 2 discs of bread, putting in a little bit of cloud, and if it works as it is today, your float's going under before your bait's got near the bottom. So you can see how, even if they're small like this, you can have a pretty good day's fishing. So let's get them in the net and we'll get back out there. There we go, another fish slowly coming in. It has been really, really good. There's been a lot of competition out there and they really have homed in on that cloud and found my bait quickly. Now, most of them have been what this little fella is, a little F1, but we've had the odd carp mixed in as well. But these chaps are so quick that sometimes they just get there before anything else. But there he is. Angry little thing, not happy that we've ruined his day. He was happily in there feeding away, but he's going to be none the worse. We'll slip him in the net, and like I said, these have been really aggressive today. They've really liked it. Perfect little fish to put a weight together as well. When it's not particularly roasting hot like we said, we're coming to spring, catching anything is a real bonus. So as he slips back in there, another thing that's worth talking to you about just before I go out there again is I've mentioned a few times how important and how much I like colour, and hence the reason why I'm dyeing the crumb that I'm fishing to make different colour clouds. But what it is also worth thinking about is dyeing your hook bait as well. Now this really opens a whole new door up to what you want to do and what you want to experiment with, because you can fish a red hook bait over a white cloud, a yellow hook bait over a red cloud. You really can get inventive with it. It might be that they want a hook bait that stands out to the clouds you're fishing, or they want it to blend in. So there's a lot of things to experiment with, but the best way to do it, now like I said, we use goo today because it just works perfectly on bread, is put a strip of colour on your hook bait or your slice of bread that you're going to be making your hook baits out with, and then just punch that out. So instead of basically putting excess liquid over your hook bait or stuff like that, this is a nice neat way of doing it. It means you haven't got to get loads of excess on your hands, and then you've got little yellow disc, red disc, whatever colour you want to do. So a nice neat little way of getting different colour hook baits. Get yourself a little strip and then punch it out from that. So I'm going to go yellow and yellow, some yellow dust into the pot, yellow hook bait, and hopefully we're going to go out and have another one. It's not been taking long at all. Be really careful when you're shipping out. I tend to try and keep my bread disc over the water because it is quite soft, and as soon as it goes into the water it expands up massively, and basically means that sometimes shipping out you could lose your slight little bit of bread disc as well. So you have got to be careful with it. It's a bite straight away which we've missed, but that is normally actually one of the negatives of fishing bread. You know, you get one go at it, you normally get one strike and your bread comes off, and I would normally say yes, that's a negative, but actually in the method that we're fishing now I'd almost class it as a positive, because what you want to be doing is you want to be getting that constant cloud raining over your bait. So actually missing bites isn't all that bad. It just means you come in again, you put another cloud out, and hopefully you'll catch another fish. So that's one to remember. If it really did get an issue, now like I said, it can bring an awful lot of fish into your swim, and especially shallow. So I'd have a few different rigs at different depths, but if it really did become an issue, then a little white pellet or a coloured pellet over the top of the cloud might be the way to go, just so you can get a couple of strikes out with it. But like I said, I really quite like the fact that if you miss the odd bite, it doesn't matter, because the fact that you just go in there, new cloud, new bit of, and there we go, we've got one on this time. So it doesn't really matter how many you miss, as long as it's not getting ultra repetitive. Keep with the bread discs and keep catching fish all day. He's ultra small. He's probably the smallest we've had today, but we haven't had any roach issue, and all the time that I've fished this I actually haven't ever been plagued with roach, so that's another plus. And I've always said in match fishing one of my sayings I like to go by is if you're putting weight in your net consistently, you're going to be a hard man or woman to beat, you know. That's, even if they're small, you put a few of these in your net, that's one big fish or two more small fish that the person next to you needs to catch to beat you. So don't worry about if they're small, catch what's in front of you, because that can be the difference in losing. If you've ever lost a match by a few ounces, which I'm sure if you're a match fisherman you have, I certainly have, then something like that was probably all you needed to win. You wouldn't be too disappointed to get them in your net. So fish for anything and you won't go far wrong in your match fishing. Couple more discs gone out. I think we'll go for a pink cloud. If I was going to pick any that's been better, I would say pink's been the best. Got a friend down here. A few of the chickens have come down to see. They like the coloured bread as well. But yeah, pink's been really good. And actually I've probably found that a white hook bait has probably been the best. So natural in the bread that I'm putting on the hook, pink in the colour that I'm feeding has definitely been the best combo today. But I promise you, you'd come back here tomorrow, you'd do that and you'd find something completely different. A different colour would work better. I'm sure it's something to do with the light or the colour of the lake, how they want to feed, anything like that. With a little liner there, actually just that bread disc stayed on, so it doesn't come off every time. But you have got to wait for a proper bite, you know. Like I said, you're getting fish intercepting that cloud, there we go, intercepting that cloud all the way through the water. So don't always just strike at a little knock on your float. Wait for your float to sail away, and you should connect with more bites. There we are. It's a little common this time, slightly better than the little F1s. I've had a few of these mixed in, but to be fair, Rick the owner has made a cracking fishery. This is probably the average size of the carp in this lake, and then the other lake has got the bigger fish in, so it caters for everyone. But I love catching fish. I don't care what size they are. Perfect little creatures in miniature. It's all about trying things. This is certainly going to play part in my fishing for the next certainly month until it really warms up. Yeah, very successful. A few more casts and hopefully we'll see what we've got at the end. Well, there we go, there's another fish, and I'm definitely going to call this the last one. It's been an unbelievably good day. To be honest, the more we've put that cloud through, the more we've fed, the better it's got. And they really have got confident. We've caught loads of fish. Now look at that, come that in the net, couldn't get much better than that. But most of the day's been these F1s, they've really liked that cloud. They've got in amongst it, and the fishing's just got better and better. One thing I would say, if I was doing this in a match, I'd definitely have 2 or 3 rigs, one at probably half depth, one at full depth that we fished today, and then one really shallow, because they have come up in the water, they've got that confident, even though it's not that hot. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.